The Renaissance, a word that stirs images of breathtaking frescoes, monumental sculptures, and the intellectual awakening of Europe. But while the Italian Renaissance dazzled with its soaring cathedrals and dramatic perspective, another Renaissance was unfolding further north, quietly weaving a different kind of magic. Welcome to the Northern Renaissance, a period where art found power in precision and detail, bringing the everyday world to life in ways that still captivate us. This wasn't just a regional trend, it was a revolution in how art could connect with the soul. Imagine standing before a painting so detailed that you can see the fibers of a carpet, the gleam of sunlight on a polished goblet, or even the delicate veins of a flower petal. That's the essence of the Northern Renaissance, an era defined not by grandeur and scale, but by its almost microscopic devotion to the tangible world. But why was this movement so different from its southern counterpart? To answer that, we must dive into the cultural and artistic roots of Northern Europe in the 15th and 16th centuries. While Italy basked in the rediscovery of classical antiquity, Northern Europe faced a different cultural landscape. This was a region steeped in Gothic traditions, where art was less about reviving the past and more about enriching spiritual devotion. The Middle Ages had left a lasting imprint, and the Northern Renaissance often blended medieval mysticism with cutting-edge techniques. As trade flourished and cities like Bruges and Antwerp became hubs of commerce, wealth flowed into the region. This wealth found its way into art, with patrons commissioning works that celebrated both piety and prosperity. Yet, the Northern Renaissance was not just a response to the times, it was shaped by the tools of its trade. The invention of oil paint gave artists a medium that could capture textures, light, and depth with unmatched fidelity. Unlike frescoes, which dried quickly and demanded broad strokes, oil paints allowed for slow, deliberate refinement. This became the cornerstone of Northern artistic identity. If the Italian Renaissance was a symphony of geometry and idealism, the Northern Renaissance was a sonnet of texture and realism. Italian artists like Michelangelo and Raphael sought perfection in human anatomy and grand compositions, but their northern counterparts had a different muse, the world as it was. Artists such as Jan van Eyck and Albrecht Dürer didn't just paint what they saw, they painted how it felt. A humble scene of domestic life could hold as much reverence as a religious tableau, elevating the mundane into the sublime. One striking example is Van Eyck's Arnolfini portrait. At first glance, it's a simple depiction of a wealthy couple, but look closer. Every detail, from the shimmer of the chandelier to the reflection in the mirror, is a marvel of observation. This meticulous attention wasn't just a technical achievement, it was a statement about the sacredness of everyday life. Religion remained at the heart of the Northern Renaissance, but it manifested differently than in Italy. Where Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel soared with divine drama, Northern artists grounded spirituality in human experience. Altarpieces like Roger van der Weyden's Deposition depicted biblical stories with raw emotion, inviting viewers to feel the grief and hope of the sacred narrative. These works didn't aim to transport the viewer to another realm, they brought the divine into the viewer's own world. And then there was Hieronymus Bosch, whose fantastical works like The Garden of Earthly Delights pushed the boundaries of imagination and morality. His art, a labyrinth of symbolism, captured the anxieties of a society grappling with sin, salvation, and an uncertain future. It was a stark contrast to the human-centered optimism of the Italian Renaissance. Art in the North wasn't just about inspiration, it was also a booming business. The rise of a wealthy merchant class created a new market for art, one that celebrated personal achievement as much as spiritual devotion. Portraiture flourished, with artists immortalizing their patrons in stunning detail, showcasing not only their likenesses but their material success. Even devotional art often featured donors prominently, blurring the lines between sacred and secular. Moreover, the advent of printmaking, championed by figures like Dürer, democratized art in unprecedented ways. Engravings and woodcuts brought detailed imagery to a broader audience, spreading ideas and styles across borders. Art was no longer confined to the walls of churches and palaces. It became part of everyday life. The Northern Renaissance wasn't just artistic, it was intellectual. Artists approached their work with a scientific curiosity, exploring perspective, proportion, and anatomy with meticulous care. Dürer, for example, was not only a master painter, but also a scholar who wrote treatises on geometry and human proportions. This analytical approach blended seamlessly with their love of detail, resulting in works that were both technically brilliant and deeply human. This marriage of art and science extended to landscapes, which emerged as a distinct genre in the North. Painters like Peter Bruegel the Elder depicted sprawling scenes of rural life, capturing not just the land, but the rhythms and rituals of its inhabitants. These works celebrated the interconnectedness of humanity and nature, offering a perspective both grounded and expansive. While much of the Northern Renaissance is celebrated for its realism, it was also a period of innovation. Miniature painting, for instance, found a home in illuminated manuscripts, where artists like the Limburg brothers created stunningly detailed scenes on tiny pages. These works were not just artistic treasures, but also tools of devotion and education, bringing biblical stories to life for a largely illiterate audience. Another fascinating aspect was the use of symbolism. Everyday objects in Northern paintings often carried deeper meanings: a dog symbolizing loyalty, a candle representing the presence of God, or fruit hinting at temptation. These layers of meaning invited viewers to look closer, rewarding their curiosity with hidden narratives. The Northern Renaissance left an indelible mark on the art world, influencing movements far beyond its time. Its emphasis on detail and texture resonated with later artists, from the Dutch Golden Age to modern realism. Even today, the meticulous craftsmanship and emotional depth of Northern art remind us of the extraordinary in the ordinary. As we reflect on the Northern Renaissance, it's clear that its power lay not in its divergence from the Italian Renaissance, but in its complementary vision. Together, they form a fuller picture of human creativity, one that embraces both grandeur and intimacy, abstraction and realism. The Northern Renaissance teaches us that art is not just about what we see, but how we see it. By celebrating the beauty and the details of life, it reminds us to look closer, to cherish the intricate, and to find meaning in the everyday. In a world that often rushes past the small things, the art of the North offers a timeless lesson. Sometimes the most profound stories are found in the tiniest details.